Enemies set a deadly snake trap for a Korean mafia boss. A black waitress noticed him and made a choice that no one expected. The water dripped somewhere in the darkness, steady, rhythmic, like a countdown. Hwang Sok had been conscious for maybe 20 minutes, though time felt elastic when your head throbbed from whatever they'd used to knock you out. Chloroform, maybe, or just a good old-fashioned blow to the skull. His training said to assess the situation systematically. Location, restraints, enemies, escape routes. Location, basement, abandoned, based on the smell of mold and decay. No windows, one door at the top of a staircase he could barely make out in the dim light filtering from cracks in the ceiling. Seattle's waterfront district, probably. He remembered being grabbed outside the shipping warehouse during what was supposed to be a simple inspection of their legitimate import operations. Restraints, heavy rope binding his wrists behind the chair, ankles tied to the chair legs. Professional work, tight enough to restrict movement, but not cut off circulation. They wanted him conscious and aware. Enemies. 3 men had jumped him, but they were gone now. Russian accents. The Volkov Bratva, most likely. They'd been pushing into Seattle's Korean territory for months, getting bolder, more aggressive. Sok had known something like this was coming. He just expected more warning. Escape routes, none apparent. The ropes were well tied, his phone was gone, and even if he could get free, he had no idea how many men waited upstairs. At 28, he'd been running the Hwang family operations for 4 years, survived 3 assassination attempts, navigated gang wars and federal investigations. He'd thought he was untouchable. Hubris. His father would have laughed at his arrogance. The door at the top of the stairs opened, flooding the basement with light that made Seok's eyes water. Footsteps, multiple sets, descending slowly. Seok kept his face neutral, refusing to show the fear that spiked through him. 3 men emerged from the shadows. The leader was tall, scarred, with the cold eyes of someone who'd done this many times before. Viktor Volkov himself, ambitious lieutenant in the Bratva family, known for creative cruelty. Awake. Good. Viktor's English was heavily accented but clear. We can talk. Talk seems optimistic considering the restraints, Seok said, keeping his voice level. Show no fear. Fear was blood in the water. Restraints are precaution. You Hwang family, you fight like cornered dogs when threatened. Viktor pulled up a second chair, sat backward on it, arms draped over the back. But I'm not here to fight. I'm here to negotiate. You have interesting negotiation tactics. You have been uncooperative through traditional channels. Your family controls shipping routes we need. We make generous offer. You refuse. We try to arrange meeting. You send lieutenants instead of coming yourself. So? Viktor spread his hands. We improvise. Kidnapping a family head is an act of war. You understand that. War is coming regardless. Question is whether you survive to see it. Viktor leaned forward. Here is new offer. Give us access to Port of Seattle operations. 40% of shipping container inspections look the other way for our cargo. In exchange, we let you live. Let your organization continue existing in reduced capacity. Reduced capacity meaning what? You take our territory piece by piece until there's nothing left? Meaning you accept reality. Bratva is stronger, better connected, more ruthless. You're outnumbered and outgunned. This offer is mercy. Suk studied Viktor's expression, reading the subtext beneath the words. This wasn't just about territory. The Bratva wanted to humiliate the Hwang family, to break their power publicly and establish dominance. Accepting this offer meant slow death, losing respect, losing soldiers, eventually losing everything anyway. No, Sok said simply. Viktor's smile was cold. I thought you might say that. You Koreans, so stubborn about honor, about pride. He stood, gestured to his men. So we show you what happens to pride in our world. One of the men placed something on the floor in the corner. Wooden crates, 3 of them, with air holes drilled in the sides. The basement suddenly felt smaller, colder. You know what these are? Viktor asked pleasantly. My associate here, Dmitri, he is enthusiast, collector of exotic creatures. Very expensive hobby, but useful when you want to make impression. Snakes, Seok said, keeping his voice steady despite the ice flooding his veins. Not just snakes, special snakes, From Southeast Asia. Very venomous, very aggressive. Victor crouched beside the nearest crate. You Korean families, you think you're untouchable, protected by tradition, by respect, by the old ways. But fear is universal language. And these creatures, they don't care about respect. He stood, brushed off his hands. Here is new offer. You have time to think. Time alone with Dimitri's collection. When you're ready to be reasonable, you call out. We discuss terms. Or, Victor shrugged, you die slowly, painfully, in the dark. Your choice. My people will come for me. They'll tear this city apart looking. Let them look. By time they find you, negotiations will be finished, one way or another. Victor nodded to his men. Open the crates. Give Mr. Huang time to consider his position. The men worked quickly, efficiently, opening the crates and stepping back. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then movement, slow, sinuous, as shapes began to emerge from the containers. Siak had been trained to handle fear, trained to stay calm under pressure, to think strategically even when facing death. But this was primal terror, the kind that bypassed rational thought and went straight to the brainstem, screaming danger. The snakes were large, some over 6 feet long, thick as his wrist. Even in the dim light, he could see their scales, the way they tasted the air with forked tongues, the fluid grace of their movement. King cobras, maybe, or crates. Dimitri's collection clearly included the deadliest species he could find. Think carefully, Victor said from the stairs. Pride is expensive. Your life, your family's future, these things are negotiable. All you must do is call out. Agree to terms. Very simple. The door closed, plunging the basement back into near darkness. Sok could hear the locks engaging. Multiple locks. Heavy duty. The snakes continued their slow exploration of the space, and Sak tried to calculate odds. The chair was solid wood, the ropes professionally tied. Even if he could work his hands free, unlikely, he'd still be trapped in a room with venomous snakes. Moving would attract attention. Staying still might work temporarily, but eventually the creatures would find him. His phone was gone, his people had no idea where he was, and the Bratva had clearly planned this carefully. No one was coming to save him. If he called out, agreed to Victor's terms, he'd be signing away everything his family had built. But if he stayed silent, one of the snakes, massive, dark-scaled, slithered closer. Suk forced himself to breathe slowly, evenly. Snakes sense vibration, heat, movement. Panicking would be fatal. The snake paused 3 feet away, head raised slightly, tongue flickering. Testing, sensing, deciding if this warm, breathing thing was threat or prey. Suk had never been particularly afraid of death. In his line of work, it was an accepted risk. But this, slow, trapped, helpless, this was a different kind of terror. This was dying not in battle, but in darkness. Alone, defeated. The snake moved closer, and Siak closed his eyes, trying to find some fragment of the calm his father had trained into him. Some piece of the man who'd survived everything life threw at him. All he found was fear. Lenny Martinez had been awake since 4:30 a.m., which was nothing unusual. Early mornings were her normal, had been since taking the job at Harborview Diner 3 years ago. The breakfast shift started at 5, and she liked getting there early, getting the coffee brewing, the prep work done before the rush hit. 26 years old, 2 jobs to make rent in one of the most expensive cities in America, student loans from a nursing degree she'd never finished. Life hadn't exactly gone according to plan, but Lenny had learned to find joy in small things. The perfect pour of a cappuccino, regulars who remembered her name, the satisfaction of making it through another day without completely falling apart. This morning was overcast, typical for Seattle in October. She walked from the bus stop toward the diner, cutting through the warehouse district because it was faster, and she'd never been one to scare easily. Her mama always said she had more courage than sense. The scream cut through the quiet morning like a knife. Lenny stopped dead, heart hammering. It had been distant, muffled, but definitely a scream. Male voice. Distressed. The smart thing would be to keep walking, call 911 once she got to the diner. Let professionals handle whatever was happening. Lenny had taken enough crisis intervention training during her nursing program to know you didn't rush in unknown situations. But she'd also taken an oath. even though she'd never finished the degree, to help people in crisis. And that scream had been terrified. She pulled out her phone, finger hovering over 911, and approached the sound source. An old warehouse, abandoned for years, windows broken, graffiti covering the walls, the kind of place people avoided. Another sound, not quite a scream this time, more like a choked cry, definitely coming from inside. Lenny tried the door, unlocked. It swung open with a rusty groan that made her wince. Inside was darkness and the smell of mold and something else. Something wrong. "Hello," she called softly. "Is someone there? Do you need help?" A voice, hoarse, strained, speaking rapidly in what sounded like Korean. Then in accented English. "Don't come in. Dangerous. Please, just call police. Don't come in." Every instinct said listen to him, get help, stay safe. But something in that voice, the barely controlled panic, the desperate warning, made Lenny's feet move forward instead of back. She used her phone's flashlight, sweeping the beam across the warehouse's main floor. Empty. But there, in the back corner, stairs leading down. The voice was coming from below. "I'm coming down," she called. "Just stay calm. I'm here to help." "No, please, snakes. There are snakes. Very dangerous. Just call." The voice cut off with another choked sound. Snakes. Jesus Christ, there were snakes down there. Lenny should have run, should have called 911 and waited for animal control and professionals. But she was already moving down the stairs, phone light cutting through the darkness, and what she saw at the bottom made her blood freeze. A man, Asian, late 20s, expensive suit torn and dirty, tied to a chair in the center of the basement, and around him, moving with sinuous grace through the shadows, were snakes. Multiple snakes. Large ones. The man's eyes met hers. Dark, terrified, but also warning. "Go," he said quietly. "Please. This isn't your fight. Just go." One of the snakes, massive, at least 6 feet long, was less than 2 feet from his legs. Its head was raised, hood flared. Even with Lenny's limited knowledge, she recognized the threat posture. Cobra. That was a fucking cobra in a basement in Seattle. Lenny's nursing training kicked in. Assess, prioritize, act. The man was restrained, couldn't move, was moments away from being bitten by what was probably a lethally venomous snake. Calling for help would take too long. By the time anyone arrived, he'd be dead. She needed to act, now. But how do you safely approach a room full of venomous snakes? Then she remembered, years ago, working at a summer camp during college, one of the counselors had been a herpetology student. He'd talked endlessly about snake behavior, about calming techniques, about the importance of slow movement and specific sounds. Whistling. He demonstrated how certain low, steady whistles could calm some snake species. Something about the frequency, the consistent sound. It didn't work on all snakes, but it was better than nothing. "I'm going to try something," Lenny said quietly to the man. "Stay absolutely still. Don't make any sudden movements. You need to leave. I'm not leaving you here to die. Now be quiet and let me work." Lenny took a slow, deep breath, centering herself. Then she began to whistle. Low, steady, a simple tune her grandmother had taught her years ago. The kind of sound that carried without being threatening. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. The cobra nearest the man remained poised to strike. Then slowly, almost imperceptibly, it lowered its head slightly. Not retreating, but less aggressive. Lenny continued whistling, stepping down the last stair with excruciating slowness. Every movement was calculated, deliberate. Snakes sensed vibration. She had to be smooth, non-threatening. The other snakes in the room had noticed her now. 3, no, 4 of them. All large, all potentially deadly. One near the far wall, 2 coiled near the crates they'd apparently come from, and the big one near the man. "What's your name?" Lenny asked quietly, still whistling between words. "Siak, Huang Siak." "I'm Lenny Martinez. I'm going to get you out of here, Siak. Just stay calm." "This is insane. You're insane." "Yeah, probably. But you're not dying on my watch." She moved closer, keeping her whistling steady, her movements fluid. The big cobra tracked her with its eyes but didn't strike. Good. That was good. 3 feet from Siak now. Close enough to see the sweat on his face, the controlled terror in his eyes, the rope burns on his wrists from struggling against the restraints. When I start untying you, Lenny said softly, you cannot move suddenly. I know you'll want to run. Don't. We move slow and steady, or we both die. Understand? Understood. Lenny crouched behind the chair, fingers working at the knots binding Seok's wrists. The rope was thick, professional grade, tied by someone who knew what they were doing. She worked at it methodically, keeping her whistling constant, even as her hands shook. The cobra moved closer. Lenny, I see it. Stay still. She kept whistling, kept working the rope. One knot loose, then another. The cobra was less than a foot from Seok's leg now, and Lenny could see the sheen of its scales, the flicker of its tongue. The rope gave way. Seok's hands were free. Don't move them yet, Lenny whispered. Keep them where they were. I'm going to work on your ankles. She moved around the chair with the same agonizing slowness, crouching in front of Seok, working on the ankle restraints. This put her at eye level with the cobra. Up close, it was terrifying and beautiful. Scales like polished metal, eyes that seemed ancient and emotionless. The hood spread in warning. Lenny had never been this close to something so deadly. She kept whistling, kept working, first ankle free, then the second. Okay, she said quietly. We're going to stand, very slowly, together, and we're going to walk to the stairs without running. Can you do that? Yes. On 3. 1, 2, 3. They rose together, Lenny's hand on Seok's arm to steady him, both moving like they were underwater. The cobra's head tracked the movement, hood flaring wider. Keep whistling, Seok whispered. Lenny didn't point out that she'd been planning to. They took a step toward the stairs, then another. The cobra followed, moving parallel to them, but not striking. The other snakes were active now, too, all drawn by the movement. One slithered directly into their path. Lenny stopped, Seok freezing beside her. They waited. 5 seconds. 10. The snake tasted the air, considered them, and slowly moved aside. They continued, step by agonizing step. The stairs were 10 feet away, then 5. One of the smaller snakes struck, not at them, but at the air near Seok's leg. A warning. They froze again. It's okay, Lenny murmured, whistling, soothing. We're not threats. We're just leaving. The snake coiled, watching, but didn't strike again. They reached the stairs. Lenny guided Seok up first, keeping herself between him and the snakes, still whistling that simple tune. 1 step, 2, 3. At the top, they stumbled into the warehouse's main floor. Lenny pulled the basement door shut, grabbed a piece of broken wood, and wedged it under the door handle. Then her legs gave out. She sat down hard on the concrete floor, hands shaking so badly she could barely hold her phone. The adrenaline that had kept her moving was draining away, leaving pure terror in its wake. Oh my God, she breathed. Oh my God, there were cobras. Multiple cobras. In a basement, in Seattle. Seok crouched beside her, and Lenny realized he was shaking too. You, he started, voice rough. You just, how did you? Summer camp, Lenny said, half hysterical. There was this guy who studied snakes. He taught me to whistle. I didn't even know if it would work. You risked your life on a maybe. Seok's expression was stunned. For a complete stranger. People were screaming. I couldn't just walk away. He reached out, took both her hands in his. His grip was strong despite the trembling. Warm, despite everything. You saved my life. Those men, they would have left me there to die. And you walked into a room full of venomous snakes and saved me. Yeah, well, Lenny tried to smile, couldn't quite manage it. Let's not make a habit of it. Who are you? Seok asked, studying her face like he was memorizing it. Really? Just a waitress on her way to work. Lenny Martinez. She managed a shaky laugh. And you're Huang Shuk, who somehow ended up tied up with cobras. So, not a normal Tuesday for either of us. I owe you my life, Seok said seriously. I owe you everything. Before Lenny could respond, they heard it. Vehicles pulling up outside, multiple engines, doors slamming. Seok tensed immediately, pulling Lenny to her feet. We need to go. Now. Those could be. The warehouse door burst open. Men flooded in. Asian, wearing dark suits, moving with military precision. For one terrifying second, Lenny thought they were about to be killed. Then one of them spotted Seok and shouted something in Korean. The entire group rushed toward them, surrounding Seok, speaking rapidly in a language Lenny didn't understand. Boss, we've been searching everywhere. The Bratva hit 3 of our warehouses. We thought. The speaker switched to English, probably for Lenny's benefit. We thought they'd killed you. They tried, Seok said grimly. Then he turned to Lenny, still holding her hand. This is Lenny Martinez. She saved my life. No one, and I mean no one, touches her. She's under my protection. Understood? The men looked at Lenny with new eyes. Assessment, curiosity, respect. She felt suddenly very aware that she was still in her diner uniform, coffee-stained and wrinkled, standing among what were clearly very dangerous people. Seok, she said quietly, what exactly is going on? Who are you, really? He met her eyes and she saw the moment he decided on honesty. I run the Huang family operations in Seattle. Korean organized crime. Those men in the basement, rival gang. They were trying to force my cooperation through intimidation. You're a gang leader. Lenny's voice was flat. Yes. She should have been horrified. Should have pulled her hand away, demanded to be taken home, put as much distance as possible between herself and this world. Instead, she found herself asking, are you hurt? Do you need medical attention? Seok blinked, clearly surprised. I'm fine. Shaken, but fine. You were tied up for hours. You probably have circulation issues, dehydration, possible trauma responses. Lenny's nursing training kicked in automatically. You should see a doctor. I have people for that. Good, use them. She pulled her hand free gently. And I need to get to work. My shift starts in 15 minutes, and I'm already going to be late. Work? Seok stared at her like she'd grown a second head. Lenny, you just saved my life. You walk through a room full of venomous snakes. You can't just go serve coffee. Why not? Bills don't pay themselves. And I'm not missing a shift because of... She gestured vaguely at the warehouse. The men. The entire surreal situation. Whatever this is. One of Seok's men, tall, scarred, professional-looking, stepped forward. Boss, we need to move. Bratva knows where we are. This location isn't secure. Right. Seok turned back to Lenny. Let me take you to work. Please. It's the least I can do. I can take the bus. Lenny. His voice was intense. I owe you my life. The absolute least. The minimum I can do is give you a ride to work. Please. She studied his face. The sincerity there. The gratitude. The stubborn determination. And under it all, something else. Something that made her pulse quicken in a way that had nothing to do with fear. Fine, she said, but I'm serious about being late. If we're doing this, we need to go now. The ride to Harbor View Diner was surreal. Lenny sat in the back of a luxury sedan. Leather seats, tinted windows, the kind of car she'd only ever seen in movies, next to a man who apparently ran organized crime operations, while his armed guards drove, and 2 more cars full of equally dangerous-looking men followed behind. This is excessive, she said. This is necessary. The Bratva knows who I am, which means they might target people connected to me, including you. Seok's expression was serious. You saved my life, Lenny. That makes you important. And important people need protection. I don't want to be important. I just want to serve coffee and pay my rent and live a normal life. Too late, Seok said softly. You walked into that warehouse. You faced down cobras. You risked everything for a stranger. Normal ended the second you decided to help. Lenny couldn't argue with that. The car pulled up outside the diner, drawing stares from early morning regulars, and she reached for the door handle. Wait. Silk pulled out a card. Heavy stock, embossed lettering. My private number. If you need anything at all, you call. Day or night. I meant what I said. I owe you my life. Lenny took the card, studying the elegant script. I don't want anything from you. I know. That's part of why I want to give it. He held her gaze. Lenny, what you did today, most people wouldn't have. Most people would have walked away, called for help, let someone else handle it. You didn't hesitate. I'm a nurse, was a nurse, almost a nurse. She stumbled over the explanation. I couldn't just leave someone in danger. You're extraordinary, and I'd very much like to see you again. Not because I owe you, though I do, but because I want to know the woman who whistles at cobras and saves strangers. Heat flooded Lenny's cheeks. Shock, you run a criminal organization. I serve breakfast at a diner. We're from completely different worlds. So we'll build a bridge. His smile was tentative, hopeful. Just think about it, please. Before Lenny could respond, her phone buzzed. Her manager, probably wondering where the hell she was. I have to go. Thank you for the ride. She climbed out of the car, intensely aware of Siak watching her, of the dangerous men in expensive suits surrounding him, of the choice hanging in the air between them. At the diner door, she looked back, found him still watching, expression unreadable but intense. Lenny lifted her hand in a small wave, saw his answering smile, and walked inside, wondering what the hell she'd just gotten herself into. And why part of her hoped it was just the beginning. The diner was already in full breakfast chaos when Lenny burst through the door, regulars shouting orders, the grill sizzling, her manager Patricia giving her a look that could have curdled milk. You're 30 minutes late, Patricia said, arms crossed. She was 50-something, had run Harbor View for 20 years, and took punctuality as seriously as a religion. Lenny, this is the third time this month. I know, I'm sorry. There was an emergency. Someone needed help. I couldn't just save it. I don't pay you to be a hero. I pay you to serve coffee. Patricia's expression softened slightly. But you're here now, so get your apron on and take section 3. Marcus called in sick, so we're short. Lenny tied on her apron, grabbed her order pad, and dove into the familiar rhythm of work. Coffee refills, breakfast orders, small talk with regulars who knew her by name. Normal, safe, the complete opposite of cobras in basements and Korean mafia bosses. But her hands shook as she poured coffee. And when Mr. Henderson, sweet old man who came in every Tuesday for pancakes, asked if she was okay, she realized she was absolutely not okay. Just a weird morning, she managed, forcing a smile. You want your usual buttermilk stack with extra butter? The shift dragged on. Every time the door opened, Lenny's heart jumped, half expecting to see Suak walk in, or worse, those Russian men who trapped him. By noon, her nerves were shot and her feet ached, and all she wanted was to go home, lock her door, and pretend this morning had been a bizarre dream. At 2 p.m. during the post-lunch lull, Patricia called her into the back office. Sit, Patricia said, not unkindly. Lenny sat. And what's really going on with you? And don't give me the everything's fine routine. I've known you 3 years. You're shaking, you've messed up 4 orders, and you look like you've seen a ghost. Lenny considered lying, considered making up some story about family drama or health issues or anything except the truth. But Patricia had always been straight with her, and she deserved honesty in return. This morning on my way here, I heard someone screaming. In that old warehouse on Pier 47. I went to help. Lenny's voice was steady, clinical. There was a man tied up, and snakes, venomous snakes. Someone had locked him in there to die. Patricia's eyes widened. Jesus Christ, Lenny, did you call the police? I got him out first, used some techniques I learned in nursing school to calm the snakes, untied him, we left. Then his people showed up. Lenny didn't mention who those people were or what Siak did for a living. He gave me a ride here. That's why I was late. You walked into a room full of venomous snakes to save a stranger. Patricia's voice was flat with disbelief. Yeah. Lenny, that's either the bravest or the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Possibly both. Patricia leaned back in her chair. Are you okay? Really? I don't know, Lenny admitted. I keep replaying it, seeing those snakes, the way they moved, how close we came to dying. And this man, Siok, he wants to see me again. Gave me his number. Said he owes me his life. And, do you want to see him? I don't know, Lenny said again. He's complicated. His world is dangerous. But Patricia, when he looked at me, it was like I mattered. Like I'd done something that actually made a difference. Patricia studied her with the shrewd eyes of someone who'd seen it all. When's the last time you felt like you mattered, Lenny? Really mattered? The question hit harder than expected. Lenny thought about her abandoned nursing degree, 3 years of serving coffee, the slow fade of dreams into resigned acceptance. A long time. Then maybe you should call him. See where it goes. Life's too short to play it safe all the time. Patricia stood, signaling the conversation was over. But Lenny, be careful. Men who need rescuing from snake-filled basements usually come with baggage. Noted. The rest of the shift passed in a blur. At 6 p.m., Lenny clocked out, exhausted and wired simultaneously. The bus ride home gave her too much time to think. About Siak's intensity, about the card in her pocket, about the choice sitting in front of her. Her apartment was a studio in Capitol Hill, small but clean, affordable by Seattle standards, hers. She dropped her keys in the bowl by the door, kicked off her shoes and sat on the edge of her bed, pulling out Siak's card. Heavy stock, embossed lettering in both English and Korean. A single phone number, no other information. The kind of card that screamed power and money and danger. Lenny should throw it away, should put this morning behind her and go back to her normal, safe, predictable life. Should absolutely not get involved with a man who ran organized crime operations. Her phone rang, unknown number. She almost didn't answer, then thought about Siak, about possibilities, and picked up. Lenny? His voice was warm, concerned. I hope I'm not overstepping. Your manager gave me your number. I wanted to check on you. Make sure you're okay after this morning. You asked my manager for my number? Lenny couldn't decide if that was sweet or creepy. I had one of my people offer a generous donation to the diner's staff fund, in exchange for assurance that you made it through your shift safely. He paused. And yes, your phone number. I apologize if that was inappropriate. It was definitely inappropriate, also kind of impressive in a stalkerish way. Lenny found herself smiling despite everything. I'm fine. Tired, but fine. I've been thinking about you all day, about what you did. Lenny, most people, even trained professionals, wouldn't have walked into that basement. You didn't hesitate. I hesitated plenty. I was terrified. But you did it anyway. That's courage. Real courage. His voice softened. I'd like to see you again. Take you to dinner. Somewhere nice. A proper thank you. Siak, I already told you, our worlds are completely different. Then let's find the places where they overlap. One dinner, Lenny, just to talk, to get to know each other outside of life-threatening situations. He paused. Please? Lenny thought about Patricia's words. Life's too short to play it safe. Thought about the way Siak had looked at her, the genuine gratitude and something deeper. Thought about how long it had been since anyone made her feel like she mattered. One dinner, she heard herself say. Somewhere public. And Siak? No snakes. His laugh was surprised and genuine. I promise, no snakes. Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock? I'll pick you up. I'll meet you there. Text me the address. Deal. And Lenny, thank you for everything, for saving my life, for giving me this chance. After they hung up, Lenny sat staring at her phone, wondering what she just agreed to. One dinner with a crime boss. What could possibly go wrong? Everything, probably. But for the first time in 3 years, she felt something other than resigned acceptance of her life. She felt alive. The restaurant was called Moonlight, upscale Korean fusion in downtown Seattle. The kind of place Lenny had walked past hundreds of times but never imagined entering. She'd agonized over what to wear, finally settling on the one nice dress she owned. Black, simple, bought for a job interview that never panned out. Suck was waiting outside when she arrived, and Lenny's breath caught. He wore a dark suit, perfectly tailored, his hair styled back. And when he smiled at her, the intensity in his eyes made her pulse quicken. You look beautiful, he said, offering his arm. You look dangerous. It slipped out before Lenny could stop it. Suck's smile turned rueful. I am dangerous, but not to you. Never to you. Inside, they were led to a private room, intimate, elegant, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Siak pulled out her chair, waited until she was settled before taking his own seat. This is too much, Lenny said, looking around at the expensive decor, the elaborate table settings. This is appropriate gratitude for someone who saved my life. He poured water for both of them. Lenny, I meant what I said. I owe you everything. You don't owe me anything. I did what anyone should do when someone's in trouble. But most people don't. That's what makes you extraordinary. He leaned forward. Tell me about yourself, really. Not just surface details. Who is Lenny Martinez? So Lenny told him. About growing up in Atlanta, her mother's death from breast cancer when she was 18, her determination to become a nurse to help people the way the nurses had helped her mom. About getting into nursing school, making it through 3 years, then her father's heart attack and the medical bills that ate through their savings. I had to drop out, she said quietly. 6 months from graduating. I couldn't afford tuition and Dad's care simultaneously. So I chose Dad, moved to Seattle where he had better specialists, got a job to pay bills. He died anyway, 2 years later, and I never went back to finish the degree. That must have been devastating. Giving up your dream. It was necessary, that's life, right? You do what you have to do. Lenny shrugged, trying to sound casual about something that still hurt 3 years later. What if you could go back? Finish the degree? With what money? I'm drowning in my father's medical debt and my own student loans. Going back to school isn't realistic. Siak was quiet for a moment, studying her. What if money wasn't an obstacle? Are you offering to pay for my education? Because Siak, that's not an offer, a thought experiment. He smiled. But hypothetically, if you could finish your nursing degree, would you? In a heartbeat, I loved it. The challenge, the hands-on care, the feeling of actually helping people. Lenny's voice grew passionate. I was good at it too. Top of my clinical rotations. My professors said I had real talent. I believe it. What you did this morning, the calm under pressure, the quick thinking, the courage, that's exactly what makes a great nurse. The food arrived, course after course of beautifully prepared dishes Lenny couldn't have afforded in a year. But what struck her wasn't the expense. It was the way Siak watched her, genuinely interested in her reactions, explaining each dish with obvious pride in his culture. My mother used to make this, he said, gesturing to a soup. Not as fancy, but the same flavors. She died when I was 16. Car accident. After that, my father raised me alone, or trained me, more accurately. Trained to take over the family business. He was hard, demanding, believed in preparing me for a brutal world through brutal methods. Siak's jaw tightened. He died 4 years ago. Heart attack. And suddenly I was in charge of everything. The operations, the territory, the people who depended on us. That's a lot of responsibility for a 24-year-old. It was necessary, like your choice to leave school. We do what we have to do. He echoed her words back with a slight smile. But Lenny, unlike you, I had a choice. I could have walked away, let someone else take over. I chose this life. Why? Because my father built something. Not all of it good, not all of it legal, but something that protects our community. Korean immigrants in Seattle, we face discrimination, exploitation, violence. The Huang family provides protection, structure, support. His eyes were intense. I'm trying to make it better, more legitimate, less violent, but change takes time. Is that why the Russians grabbed you? Because you're trying to change things? Partly. Also because we control shipping routes they want, territory they're trying to take. The Bratva sees us as weak, too concerned with honor and community to fight dirty. His expression hardened. They were wrong. After yesterday, they know that. What did you do to them? Things you don't need to know about. Things that will keep you safe by keeping them afraid. Siak reached across the table, took her hand gently. Lenny, my world is violent, dangerous. I won't lie about that. But I can also keep you completely separate from it. Protected. Safe. I don't want to be kept. Protected like some delicate thing. Lenny squeezed his hand. I walk through a room of cobras, remember? I'm tougher than I look. I know you are. That's part of why I'm fascinated by you. His thumb traced circles on her palm. You're brave and kind and absolutely stubborn. You see someone in trouble and help without calculating the cost. In my world, that's rare. Precious. Heat flooded Lenny's cheeks. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you sacrificed your dreams for your father. I know you risk your life for strangers. I know you whistle at venomous snakes and somehow make them listen. His smile was soft. I want to know more. Everything. If you'll let me. The evening stretched into hours. They talked about everything. His childhood in Seoul before immigrating at 10, her love of old movies and terrible reality TV, his plans to legitimize the family business, her abandoned dreams of working in pediatric oncology. By the time dessert arrived, Lenny had forgotten to be nervous, forgotten that this man ran a criminal organization, forgotten everything except the way he looked at her, like she was fascinating, valuable, worth knowing. I should get home, she said reluctantly when the check came. Early shift tomorrow. Let me drive you. Siak. Please, it's late. You're in an unfamiliar neighborhood, and I'd like to know you made it home safely. He stood, offering his hand. No ulterior motives. Just, let me take care of this one thing. The drive to her apartment was quiet, comfortable. Suck's car was as expensive as expected. Leather seats, that new car smell, the kind of vehicle Lenny had only ever seen in movies. But he drove carefully, asking about her neighborhood, listening when she pointed out landmarks. At her building, he insisted on walking her to the door. Capitol Hill at night was relatively safe, but Lenny didn't argue. Something about his protective instinct was nice, like being cared for by someone who could actually back it up. Thank you for tonight, Silk said at her door, for giving me this chance, for being willing to see past what I am to who I'm trying to be. Thank you for dinner, and for being honest about your world. I appreciate that. They stood in the dim hallway, close enough that Lenny could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtle, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from him. Can I see you again? Seok asked quietly. Not for gratitude, not because I owe you, just because I want to know you better. Lenny should say no, should put distance between herself and this dangerous, complicated man, should protect herself before getting in too deep. Yes, she heard herself say. I'd like that. Seok's smile was brilliant. He lifted her hand to his lips, pressed a soft kiss to her knuckles. Good night, Lenny. Sweet dreams. Night, Seok. She watched him walk away, watched the expensive car pull into traffic, then went inside and collapsed against her door, heart racing. She was in trouble. Deep, complicated, potentially dangerous trouble. And the terrifying part was how much she was looking forward to it. Over the next 3 weeks, Lenny's life transformed in ways she couldn't have imagined. Seok called every day, sometimes just to say good morning, sometimes for hour-long conversations about everything and nothing. They had dinner twice more, coffee 3 times, and one memorable afternoon at the Seattle Art Museum where Seok revealed a surprising knowledge of contemporary art. My mother was a painter, he explained, standing in front of a massive abstract canvas. Before she married my father, she had gallery shows in Seoul. She gave it up for family, but she never lost her love of art. Do you paint? Lenny asked. No, but I collect, as a way to honor her memory, to keep that part of her alive. He gestured to the canvas. This artist, she's Korean-American, struggling to make it in a predominantly white art world. I bought 3 of her pieces last year, helped fund her next show. That's really beautiful, actually. It's practical, supporting our community, investing in talent, but yes, also beautiful. His hand found hers naturally, like they'd been doing this for years instead of weeks. Thank you for coming with me. Most people in my life don't understand why I care about art. Most people in your life are missing out then. But it wasn't all museums and deep conversations. There were moments that reminded Lenny exactly who Seok was. Like the night 2 of his men showed up at the diner, sitting in her section for her entire shift, clearly assigned to watch over her. Or the morning she found an envelope in her mailbox containing $5,000 in cash and a note for any emergencies. Please don't argue. HS. She tried to return it. He'd refused to take it back. Lenny, you literally saved my life. Let me help ease your financial stress. Please. This feels like you're trying to buy me. I'm trying to take care of someone I care about. There's a difference. The care about hung between them, heavy with implication. Because whatever this was between them, it was growing beyond simple gratitude or even attraction. Lenny found herself thinking about Seok constantly, looking forward to his calls, rearranging her schedule to see him. And she could see the same thing happening to him. The way his eyes lit up when she walked into a room. The way he listened to her stories about difficult customers with genuine interest. The way he touched her casually, like he couldn't help himself. 3 weeks after their first dinner, Seo called with an unusual request. I have a business meeting tomorrow night. High-level negotiations with some associates from Los Angeles. It's important, potentially dangerous, and I'd really like you to be there. Lenny nearly dropped her phone. You want me at a criminal business meeting? I want you by my side to remind me who I'm trying to be, not just who I am. His voice was serious. Lenny, these meetings, they bring out the worst in me. The violence, the threats, the brutal calculus of power. But having you there would help me stay grounded, stay human. Shuck, that's a lot of pressure. I know. And if you're uncomfortable, I completely understand. But I'm asking anyway. Because you make me want to be better. Lenny thought about it. The risk, the exposure to his world, the potential danger. But she also thought about Sayok's genuine desire to change, to be something more than his father's legacy. Okay, I'll be there. But Sayok, I'm not going to just sit quietly. If I see something wrong, I'm speaking up. His laugh was warm with relief. I wouldn't expect anything less. The next night, Lenny dressed carefully, professional but not too formal, a navy dress that Patricia had helped her pick out. Xiao sent a car, and she was driven to a restaurant in Pioneer Square. Upscale, private, the kind of place where powerful people made deals. Xiao met her at the entrance, and his expression when he saw her made her pulse quicken. You look perfect. Thank you for coming. Thank you for trusting me with this. Inside, the private room held 6 men, all Korean, all watching Lenny with expressions ranging from curious to openly hostile. Xiao guided her to a chair beside his at the head of the table. Gentlemen, he said, switching between Korean and English seamlessly, this is Lenny Martinez. She's under my protection and will be observing tonight's discussions. One of the older men, silver-haired, hard eyes, spoke in rapid Korean. Lenny caught enough body language to know it wasn't friendly. Siak's response was sharp, authoritative. The room went quiet. Then he turned to Lenny, speaking English. Mr. Choi questions your presence. I've explained that you're here at my invitation. That should be sufficient. The meeting was intense. Discussions of territory, shipments, payments, all coded in language that danced around explicit criminality. Lenny watched Seok navigate it with impressive skill, balancing firmness with diplomacy, making concessions where strategic and holding firm where necessary. But midway through, one of the men, younger, aggressive, made a comment in Korean that made everyone else tense. Seok's expression went cold. What did he say? Lenny asked quietly. Nothing important. Seok. What did he say? He sighed. He suggested that bringing a woman, an outsider, to these meetings showed weakness, that I'm distracted, compromised. Lenny turned to the aggressive man, met his hostile gaze directly. I may not speak Korean, but I understand disrespect. And I understand that strong leaders surround themselves with different perspectives, not just yes men who tell them what they want to hear. The room went silent. The young man's eyes widened in surprise. Seok's hand found hers under the table, squeezed gently. When he spoke again, his voice carried absolute authority. Discussion continued, but the dynamic had shifted. Lenny had asserted herself, earned a measure of respect. After the meeting in the car heading back to her apartment, Seok pulled her into his arms. That was incredible. The way you stood up to Park. No one speaks to him like that. He's one of the most powerful men in our organization. He was being disrespectful. To you and to me. I wasn't going to sit there quietly and take it. Lenny Martinez, you are absolutely extraordinary. Seok cupped her face gently. I'm falling for you. Completely, terrifyingly in love with you. And I know it's fast, I know it's complicated, but it's real. And I need you to know that. 6 months passed. 6 months of Lenny and Seok building something real despite all the obstacles. He kept his promise about leaving the criminal world, slowly, carefully, transitioning operations to legitimate businesses, passing violent enforcement to trusted lieutenants, creating distance between himself and the worst aspects of the Huang family legacy. It wasn't easy. There were setbacks, violent confrontations with rivals who saw his withdrawal as weakness, tension with his own people who resisted change, moments when Lenny worried he'd be pulled back into the darkness. But Seok held firm, and Lenny was there for all of it. The late-night strategy sessions, the difficult conversations about honor versus pragmatism, the slow, painful work of becoming someone new. He also made good on his other promise. One morning, Lenny woke to find an acceptance letter from the University of Washington's nursing program, along with a full scholarship funded by an anonymous donor. She'd called Seok immediately, torn between gratitude and frustration. You can't just, I didn't even apply. I had someone submit your transcripts in a compelling letter about why you had to leave. The scholarship is legitimate. The Huang Family Foundation, established to support students who faced financial hardship. You're the first recipient, but you won't be the last. Shuck, let me do this. Please. Let me help you achieve your dream the way you helped me find mine. She'd cried, accepted, started classes 3 weeks later while still working part-time at the diner. It was exhausting, school, work, relationship, but Lenny had never been happier. On their 1-year anniversary of the day she'd saved his life, Siak took her back to that warehouse. Why are we here? Lenny asked, stomach twisting with bad memories. Because this is where everything changed.